I'm sure. Oh no, this
We're
meeting is
live. It says we're live. I'm just going to give it a minute to hook up on the page.
all right. Got it.
I can make sure. I can make sure that I see us there. Okay, we are there. Awesome. Awesome.
Yay.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mystical Monday. You have a few ghost hosts with you this evening. You have myself, Courtney, Marty, the fan favorite, as I call him, and Sunshine. And we are here for the first Mystical Monday in a few weeks to chat with you about some of our recent segments that we've done together and gotten scared. Well, I've gotten scared, and all things that are coming up. So first, I want to talk about how we didn't have anything come out last week for Spooky Story Sunday. I was out of town, and it turned out that the previous segment we did for Cemetery Saturday was almost like a crossover event of Cemetery Saturday into Spooky Story Sunday. So that one's a little bit long when you go back to watch, but it's definitely a cross between history and scary. So it covers all of the bases on that one. But before we get into that really exciting trip to Downs Road and Sperry Cemetery, I just want to chat about the first segment that we did a few weeks ago for this, set on Witchy Wednesday, where we talked about what type of witches you can be and what type of witchcraft you can practice. So Sunshine and I had just gotten done filming with Fox 61 for a fantastic segment that day. And we were at the beautiful Fort Griswold near the Ebenezer Avery house. And after we had gone ghost hunting there, which you can watch the segment and hear some of the EVPs we actually got on camera that day. But as we were kind of there after sunset, we thought it was a really beautiful place to film our Witchy Wednesday and to talk with you guys about, practicing witchcraft and some of the favorite things that you can do. And you can, of course, ask us any questions if you have any on your type of practice. I was actually getting asked a few questions yesterday about kind of as you're starting to practice witchcraft or spirituality, how do you connect? Like, how do you connect to so that you're getting messages from the other side or from your spirit guides, and it's not you messing with your own head. So I have an answer that I gave them, but Sunshine, I'd love to see what you say to that.
Well, how do you know whether you're getting messages just from your own head or from your spirit guides?
Right. Like, how do you connect? How do you ready yourself so that information is sort of purely coming from a spiritual sense?
Well, honestly, that is a breathing exercise and a meditation that I use to get myself kind of in the zone. However, I can do it really quickly now. When I was a child, it would take me a little bit to get in the zone, mostly because I was wanting to play instead of do work. And so for me, it's kind of an automatic connection for me right now, but it does take practice. It really does. That's why they call it a meditation practice. So connecting with your higher soul, or whoever it is that you think is in charge of you, even if you think it's your own scientific mind, that's what you'll be reaching for. And here's pretty much how you know the difference is that you give yourself bad advice and your spirit guides will give you more in-depth advice that might not make sense to you. However, it's always the right thing to do. You can feel it in your stomach when you're doing the right thing. So there's so many ways to connect. The best way to connect is to go to nature.
Yes, that's my recommendation too. Yes,
go to the ocean, go to whatever element calls you the most and spend time there. And even honestly, hugging trees is a great way to connect.
Yes. So that's very similar and so that kind of shows how even different people, no matter how they practice, similarly can connect. But I always find that being outside, even if it's by a body of water, is extremely helpful, be it a river, and like you said, the trees, but almost going to sort of that Zen meditation. But I think the other thing too that's really important, again, no matter what type of craft you're practicing, is to make sure that you really cleanse yourself before you go in, and your intentions, so that you're not kind of have this open door policy that every spirit in wherever you are can sort of come in and take that time. You want to really focus on what you need and what you're looking for.
Definitely.
And there's
Definitely.
different ways to do that, be it with sage or sea salt, but I tell people to be careful with that, because you can really go wrong with that and stir things up.
Sometimes, I mean, sage usually lightens things up, makes things that are dark kind of dissipate, but throwing salt at things can sometimes make things angry, and they get stirred up. So
it's a way, that you do it, and your intentions while you're doing it. And actually, someone just sent us a question, which is really, really good. Kelly asked, I see triple numbers all the time throughout the day. Do you think it could be my spirit guides connecting with me?
Definitely could be a spirit guide or a crossover loved one. Like my grandmother, when I was a child, she would always ask me, she'd say, Sunshine, you know about this. What does 444 mean? I wake up every morning at 444. And I think I was about 10 years old, and I was like, I don't know.
Right.
And then later on in life, I learned about the angel numbers. And those numbers correspond to her for me. So if you're seeing triple numbers, look up what the angel number corresponding to it is.
Right. It could be that you're in alignment sometimes with your purpose. I almost see it as like that feeling, Marty describes it as deja vu, but like you're in the right direction at the right time, and kind of paying attention to those numbers is that reminder that you're in alignment with your purpose, because
or that somebody who's connected to those numbers is trying to say hi. Like I always see 444 now in the afternoon, and I would say, oh, hi, Grandma. So it might be somebody trying to connect, but you don't know who. And then if you see 1111 a lot, that's a gateway number where you're supposed to kind of make a wish, right?
I've been seeing 1111 a lot lately myself, and I've been noticing, I'm like 1111 again, and I do that. I'm like, make a wish or set an intent, or I manifest. But kind of, again, that goes to your intuition. How do you feel when you're seeing the numbers? Are you thinking of someone? Does it give you a reminder? Or are you feeling kind of hopeful or optimistic? That might be a great time to do your manifestation and wishing. So it can be both, but it's definitely a spiritual sign. It's just kind of each number can be different.
And then also in numerology, you can, like I have 444 for my grandmother. If I add those numbers together, that's 12. And then if you add 2 to 1, that's 3. So really the number is 3 that she's reaching out to me on. There's a whole bunch of stuff about numerology.
Kelly just said, I always see 111. Or 111.
That is that's a special number. That's like a gateway, a little gateway moment in time to set your intentions in the right direction, or to ask for help from your guides. I feel like the numbers are sometimes the only way that they can get through to us, because all of us, so many times all day long, we're busy. And you're driving to work, you're in your office, and then you come home and you clean and you make some dinner, and then you watch some TV, but you didn't take any time at all to connect. So your spirit guides want to connect with you, so they're going to choose whatever way you're going to notice
it. And they know you're looking at the car radio, they know you're looking at your phone or your cable box or your Alexa or your Google, and the time is going to be on those things, and they know that you're going to see that. So you know, your stove usually has the time. That's a really great way to get your attention, no matter what room you're in and what you're doing. So yeah, numbers are a really great way to start almost focusing in on those moments that you want to connect. But I do think that's a really great question. And I do think that no matter what type of craft you practice, whether, you know, again, you were talking about like, are you outside and you're practicing your craft by the water or in the woods? Are you really into greenery? Are you a kitchen witch? Are you all of these things? That all, you know, all encompassing with spirituality and connection, no matter what type of, you know, witchcraft you're practicing. So I do think that that's, you know, a really good question and a common question that people, you know, ask. And I think it's just a lot about following your intuition. But I also, you know, Riley, who does our videos, she was does the editing on our videos. She was really excited that we started talking about types of witchcraft, because that's something that a lot of people are starting to get into now.
Really?
It's starting to become a practice for people. So, you know,
Yeah.
not to like negate religion, but there's almost a steering away from traditional religions and more into this natural witchcraft. And I've noticed it myself on social media, just a lot of people really trying to get into what they consider their witchcraft. So this is probably something that I think you and I will probably do more than one episode on.
I'm
So
sure.
start to ask questions about connecting and what they identify with. And later this summer, I'm going to be doing a program with some garden clubs and such about herbal healing and that side of witchcraft and the power and magic behind different herbs. So that's something that is really kind of great to get into, because it betters your physical and mental health
Yeah.
when you get involved in that way. So if you guys want to see more about types of witchcraft, make sure you send us questions and comments so we know what to include in our next episode about it. We already have plans though for the next Witchy Wednesday, but for the one after that, because there is a big feast day coming up and all of the pagan and witch cultures as we get to the longest day of the year coming up on the solstice. So we've
Summer
got
solstice.
Yeah.
Favorite one, to be honest.
Yes, and we've got fun stuff planned for you, and maybe Sunshine will dance around the fire this time.
Maybe. Probably I'll save that for Beltane, you know.
Well, we did Beltane, so we're gonna have to, yeah, next year. One day we're gonna get Sunshine to jump over the fire. It's gonna happen.
We should. I actually did that one year at Coogan Farm. They were just doing a burn off and they had little bonfires, and I was like, do you mind if I just do this, because it's supposed to show you how high your crops are supposed to grow.
Right.
The farmer's wife was into witchy ways and she said, please do. And I went and jumped over.
I don't know if I would do that, because I fear if I did not make the jump, that would be foreboding for the crops in a bad way.
It would be actually, so don't. You can't make the jump.
Bad year for crops. Let's not send me jumping over the fire this time.
Right.
But I do want to get into the episode 2 that we did at Sperry Cemetery and Downs Road, 2 locations, the new Downs Road and the old Downs Road. And that wild day, we spent almost an entire day and night.
It was fun.
It was fun and terrifying in Bethany and Woodbridge, Connecticut. So, you know, we kind of got to talk about it a little during the episode, but just to give background, this had been on our radar for a bit, because the Pukwudgies had been on our radar, the aliens had been on our radar in varying episodes, and then of course Sunshine's favorite species, called the melonheads, had been on our radar as well. And so so they were on our radar, but when we were looking up, you know, the frequency and locations of their appearances, and, you know, because a lot of times there's the discussion of whether these geographical locations can create, you know, a vortex that allows them in. we started finding out that a lot of them were seen, as well as a Bigfoot creature and a monster, all in these woods around Downs Road in Bethany, Connecticut, and Woodbridge, Connecticut, and kind of going into Hampden. There's multiple towns just outside New Haven, but it's a relatively small area, even though it sounds large. So we noticed that was happening there, but then we also noticed that there was this crazy story that seemed to be the catalyst for, at the very least, the documentation of all of these paranormal events. And it took place on the old Downs Road where all of these creatures reside now, but people used to live there, and the foundations for their homes are still out in the woods, which we will go find in the light. I said I'll go back, but not in the dark.
Yes, because isn't it, Courtney, those foundations actually turned out to be part of our real story for Cemetery Saturday, right?
Exactly.
I mean, we were on the road in which the very negative thing happened.
Yes, and so
without meaning to be, we were there.
And it had two kind of histories to it. It had the regicide history of the men who plotted the killing of the King of England, hiding, in a cave there that still exists that you can actually go visit. But we were focused on this axe murder that was committed by someone who, according to the gravestones, is called a maniac.
Maniac with an axe.
Yes. Charles is his name. And he, had kind of relations to a cult, for all intents and purposes, a religious cult called the Wakemanites. And there was an exorcism gone wrong. So, that should be a movie all by itself. Yes. But there was an exorcism gone wrong, and Charles is, a little bit motivated.
They were doing an exorcism, but it was kind of like a split between like an exorcism and a sacrifice almost.
Yeah, because they stabbed this man with a fork, for God's sakes. Yeah.
I feel like it started as an exorcism and then quickly moved along to murder.
It escalated. And Charles's sister was involved in the murder.
It was his own uncle who was killed.
Yes, and they said he had always had kind of issues, but he was a laborer, so no one found it strange when a couple of days after the exorcism, between Christmas and New Year's, a nice holiday tale, he brings his axe out of town and encounters a man on his carriage and chops off his head, and he ends up being a really well-to-do politician in the area. And then he goes to the house of Ichabod Umberfield, and Ichabod tries to talk him down, but then he does the same thing to him before he's ultimately, caught and charged with murder and sentenced to death, but then dies of smallpox before he meets the gallows.
Right.
So this whole crazy event, the homes that he went to, his home, his body is still at an unknown location as far as records go.
Still haven't figured that one out.
They all this was on Downs Road, right? So all this terrible murder, the cult, all of this takes place in and around Downs Road. And now Downs Road, people have been documenting all these crazy things, not even knowing that the axe murder and the regicide trail and all that was coinciding with all of these supernatural things. So I think the number one question people are probably going to ask us is, what is the geographical power in that area that allows everything from murder to aliens to creatures,
the possible melon heads as well?
Right. Like we're talking about creatures, animals, aliens from the sky, Bigfoots, but how does that relate to Charles Sanford and the murders and the regicide trail? Is it just a coincidence? It doesn't seem like it could be. So
I know, didn't we learn though, Courtney, that there was also another correlation between another axe murderer and some ley lines or something on the earth? I forget. Didn't we learn that?
I think we were discussing something with, there was a discussion too, so where Lizzie Borden and the axe murder of her family, which, is quite famous is in Fall River, there are also sightings of Pukwudgies. There are
Yeah.
also increased sightings of aliens, and it all occurs within a very small radius to where that murder happened, also incidentally in the 19th century. So I mean, we'd be remiss to say that there's not something going on, but
Right.
it's curious. Are the creatures causing these people to go mad?
Well, what was strange when we were there also was that there was no noise. There were no animals.
No.
Yeah.
And that reminds me of other places that have something going on magnetically
Like
with the
Dudley
earth
Town.
Yeah.
that creates it so that birds can't really fly there, or they don't want to go there.
Right.
I didn't feel any confusion when I was there, but I definitely had heightened senses because there was so much going on.
I am still, and this haunts me, and you guys may have seen it in the video, but when we went up to like the gate by the river, this is before we even go down the creepy road and I'm begging to go home. This is
Yes.
before that. But when we go down to that gate by the river, and Sunshine, you invited whatever creature may be there, alien, Pukwudgie, you name it, whatever's there, to make itself known or to play. You
Play
said
with
to play by the water to kind of alert us to its presence.
And all four of us saw it.
And sure as anything, down at this rock by the water, this little head
I know.
starts popping up and
down.
popping up and getting bigger and bigger. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, this is scary enough. And you go, come closer to
And it
us.
moved to the grass.
I could have died right then and there. You're like, come closer, come closer. And then you see it kind of dodging around the rock. And we tried to get this all on camera, and I'm not sure that it translated as vividly as it was in person, but you could see the grass start to move, and then it kind of, and then we heard a dog bark in the woods and it went away. And I immediately thought, well, the Pukwudgies, they make sounds like animal sounds. Entice people. But it was scary. What do you think, Sunshine, that was that night? I'm going with Pukwudgie because it was mischievous and a little bit playful, and the sound.
I'm not sure because in my experience, don't think I'm crazy, but in my experience, the alien life forms like to live under the water.
Right.
In their crafts or whatever under the water. So there is a large reservoir there that I imagine if we could have gotten closer to it, we might have seen some lights underneath the water or not. I really felt like it was more of an alien being because I asked it to come out and play. And immediately it kind of looked, it didn't look to me like what a Pukwudgie would look like, but then how would we know? Because they're shapeshifters.
In the dark, and also they are just kind of short, and that's kind of what we saw. I mean, I will say this reservoir that's out there, you really can't get close to it. It's extremely protected. You can't swim in it, fish in it.
You get arrested.
Right. And it is heavily blocked off and close enough to a main road where people are going to make sure that
heavily blocked off because you hop that.
You can hop it, but people are going to notice. You're going to get caught.
Yeah, you're definitely.
Plus, a Pukwudgie might get you, or an alien.
Yes. But it is a big body of water. So that, if anyone who watched that episode was like, is that really real? Are they really seeing this? Yes, we did. And then it was after that moment that we said, let's go to that old dirt road, which is what we found out after the fact was the original Downs Road with the foundations from the axe murder, and where, people hear crying in the woods of a certain animal and things like that. So we go down, this dirt road, and there was just, to me, a very icky feeling there, but you wanted to keep going, Sunshine. So tell us about that.
Well, on the Regicide Trail, which we didn't know Downs Road and Regicide Trail were the same thing, there was a colonial type spirit who came right towards me, looked exactly like the shape of the tricorner hat and the outfit and everything, but just dark black, came towards me. And we were using the spirit box at the time. And I remember the guy said to us, "Did you bring money? Did you bring money?"
He did. Yeah, he wanted money and food, I think.
Right. And I said, "No, I did not. Do you have money for me?" And he said, "Yes." And I said, "Where is it?" And he said, "The treasure, follow me."
He did say that, yes.
So I'm like, "Okay, I'll follow you probably to the cave where you've hidden it." And I start marching along because I can see the spirit ahead of me leading the way. Actually, there were 3 spirits, but only one was really strong enough to speak.
Yes.
And it was only until I heard Jason or you, because you seemed really far away from me.
We were far away at one point. So for anyone watching, Sunshine went down the trail to follow the ghost. And Marty, my husband, followed her.
I was still like, I don't know, 10, 15 feet behind you.
I could not stop Marty or Sunshine from going. All who was left was Sunshine's husband, Jason. And I said, "You better not leave." And he very kindly stayed with me, where we had the spirit of a creepy boy still talking. Right. Jason could see his breath. The boy was telling us to go back. Yeah. So I'm here going, "Oh my gosh, if the dead people are telling us to go back, this is bad news all around."
I got scared. I'll tell you what I got scared of and why I stopped marching, because I believed the ghost. I always believe ghosts that tell me they have treasure. I always follow up on that just in case. The coin, it could be really cool. But out of my right ear, I heard Jason say, "It's 5 miles to the cave."
That is true too.
And then all of a sudden, I also kind of up into my right had a weird feeling that someone who was living and not dead could be hiding in the woods. And they could be a melon head or somebody like a melon head and want to eat me.
Well, so
and this running back.
And this is a valid fear, my friends, because one of the major overarching theories about Downs Road and the melon heads is that they are inbred human kind of creatures that are cannibals. And there are neighbors who, I read an article that didn't even come out that long ago, like a few years ago, where a neighbor took some folks from the news down that road and was like, "We don't come down here at night. We can hear them in the woods." Like, knew that these cannibalistic people lived there. So when you're following the shape of a person, I'm like, "Where is the car?"
Yeah. And then like, I just got a feeling to stop. And then I got a little scared. And then I realized Marty was still behind me. And I was like, oh, we should go back.
Courtney's gonna have a heart attack out here.
I felt like Marty and me were gonna be kidnapped by melon heads.
Yes. And I don't know. Well, actually, I do know that I probably wouldn't have been brave enough to come get you. So like, I would have been like, "We should really call someone about this."
You gotta call now, yeah. It's scary
I
time.
want to know if there's this theory on, like, is there some kind of connection with the melon heads and these axe murders? Because they seem to happen very close to them.
Yes. They do.
Yeah.
They do. And I would love to find out more. So you guys can, of course, tell us in the comments or send us a message. Should we go back to Downs Road? Mind you, I will be going during the light of day and see if we can get any answers. And yes, should we go back to Downs Road? And do you think you have the answer as to why so many paranormal anomalies set up in certain geographical locations? Ley lines is a theory, but are there any other theories? And what is the power of the ley lines in generating this? And I will say that this is outside my wheelhouse, so I am interested in hearing the theories of people that watch and study the same interests we do, because what we focus on at Seaside Shadows is very much haunted history. So the history of living people, who have passed away and now are coming back in their spirit form and, communicating as people about the past, which is spooky and what we love. But when we start to get involved in things like, vortexes, ley lines, creatures, it's, not necessarily our expertise, but still very much within the realm of the paranormal. So we, of course, are interested when these things overlap, because we did encounter human spirits in the beginning of the day,
Yes.
but things really started to diverge and become unclear as our investigation went on. So I would love, people watching this at some point, leave us a message, tell us what your theory is. So when we go back, we can try and investigate and get some of those answers.
Yes. And Jason told me, Marty, that we can actually drive to that cave. We don't have to walk.
Yeah.
5 miles.
We were on the opposite side.
Yeah. Well, there's a huge mountain range there too around the reservoir, which seems unusually tall for Connecticut.
Right. And it's funny, people think suburb of New Haven, it's still got to be probably pretty city-esque.
It's not.
It's almost shocking how wooded
it changes
and set apart it is. It reminds me of where we are based in Eastern Connecticut, where it's heavily wooded. We just went back there and then bam, it was.
You got the city of New Haven, and then you got a little bit of a suburb, and then all of a sudden you're getting in farms.
You're in the woods
where
they keep horses.
Driving up that main road.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I will say too, and do you guys remember this? There were animals that were popping up on our way to Downs Road. We had the coyote that ran as we were coming out of New Haven, and varying other animals that started kind of popping up, almost like a warning sign. Yeah. Coyotes are kind of like a sign of being sly, but I will always remember that dog that barked where there could not have possibly been a dog. There was no house. There was no one walking their dog.
That sounded really close.
And we did capture that on audio, so go back and watch that episode. But there is we're talking and a dog barks. Do you remember that?
It was really close. Yeah. And did that file actually loaded finally and went on?
Yeah.
Riley, so we can hear the dog. So that was creepy. There was the dog, and that sort of sounded like a well-kept dog, like a Westie or like a Pomeranian type bark. It was like,
Pukwudgies are shapeshifters. Kelly asked a really great question. She says, is there a Native American burial ground there? And I believe we talked about this just a little bit, so I have to look into it more. But the Native Americans were the first to the part of the Algonquin tribe out in that region, were the first to document knowing Pukwudgies.
Right.
And they described them as kind of this small, almost like hobbit-like person in our, reference book that they had a friendship with. But then something went awry, and one of the Algonquin Indians betrayed the Pukwudgies and gave them to a tribe of giants or something like this, almost like fed them to the giants. And then the surviving Pukwudgies created this vendetta against the Algonquin tribe. But what they did was starting stealing their lives, but then manifesting as them to lure them. So that kind of almost gave them more of a supernatural power. So is that exactly on Downs Road? Quite possibly, since that's a Pukwudgie hotspot. But it would be interesting to find out, is this where that betrayal took place?
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to research that, because that could be why it's so active. I mean, there's a number of places that are active for Pukwudgies anyway in Connecticut, which is, I think, Patchogue Forest, right?
Most of them are near Western Connecticut, going even a little further out toward Fairfield and Shelton and things like that. But I know this was like the big hub for them, is, route.
Yeah, well, it's weird because when I think of a Pukwudgie, when I was a child and I was in the woods in Pennsylvania all the time, in New Jersey all the time, I would see creatures that I would call a brownie. And they were kind of short, like so, and they had like kind of like a little kind of football shaped head. Not like a melon head or an alien, but kind of like, I don't know how to describe it.
Well,
and
I
they
think
were like earth spirits of some sort.
And I think there's a few people, I've kind of gone down the Reddit rabbit hole on this a little bit, because Reddit has a discussion for everything. And there was a Reddit discussion, are brownies Pukwudgies and vice versa. But I think the collective decision with everyone was that they're absolutely not, just because of their whole description and their origination. And when we do look to Native American lore, we have to kind of trust them a lot here in America, because they're going to be the earliest documentation of what creatures could be in these woods. And they described them more as these tiny human creatures, just kind of exaggerated limbs, but not necessarily anything other than that totally sets them apart from appearance.
Well, that's what's so nerve-wracking about a Pukwudgie, is I guess you won't know it till you meet one. I don't think I've ever met a Pukwudgie. I think what was playing with us at the reservoir, popping its head up and down, was a small alien.
But what about the barking? That could have been a Pukwudgie.
Well, let's just say I probably made a mistake in invoking everything at the same time.
For anyone watching right now, I cannot describe to you the feeling that overcame my entire body, like the just absolute fear to my core. It was warm. I got cold when Sunshine said, "Make yourself known, play by the water." I was terrified because I knew it would, like you knew someone was listening and you knew they were going to respond. And that's not always the case in the paranormal. Sometimes you kind of know you're talking to an empty room, so to speak. But I knew at that moment that something was going to respond and that I might not be ready for what it was.
It was pretty interesting. Other aliens that I've met have usually just kind of been shapes of light that move really quickly towards me.
Yeah,
I've never really seen a body like that, so maybe that was a Pukwudgie.
Oh yeah, and then that was it. And I will say, and I don't know, anyone watching too can let us know, but I have noticed, and Sunshine, you and I have talked about this a little bit, and Marty, you and I have talked about this as well, that there's been an increase, especially in the past couple weeks, and it could be all the retrograding planets and everything, but in really kind of almost this energized feeling in the air that's almost like vibrational or electric lately. And it's almost been like you can like touch it. And when I went to Gettysburg last week, which I've been several times, if you guys follow us online, that I go there, I research and talk and things like this. But I was taking someone to a location I've been to several times called Pickett's Charge up on Cemetery Ridge. And, that's where a great deal of folks died. That was an enormous amount of casualties on day 3 of the Battle of Gettysburg. But, we kind of were talking about how some of the boys walked backwards, so that they would get shot in the front so they could be sent to their family with honors, but they were trying to back off. And I got the idea of, why don't we do that walk, like from where they were and back up?
Oh boy.
Yeah. That's my, my spiritual ghosty sense. So myself and another medium that was there at the conference start doing the walk that way. And it felt a little bit unsettling. And there were moments that were, of course, upsetting, but it was when we got to the road by the end of the field. And then, you could feel that there were people behind you. Like you could almost hear orders going forward, like pushing you back, right? But then I felt like my whole body, and I've never felt this in my whole life, was covered from head to toe in cobwebs. And like, I kept like hitting my arm, and she was checking me for bugs because she was feeling tingly too. And we thought we were like getting covered in bugs.
Cicadas, maybe.
Right. The cicadas were not even in that field at that moment. It's like Everything got quiet. There wasn't a bug. It was sunset. It was exactly sunset. Like we were documenting the sky going, like the sun going down in the sky. And I felt the cobwebs overcome me. And then as we walked forward, there was this moment, and I think maybe like Downs Road, there's like a vortex or a portal or something on Pickett's Charge. And I could see someone fall in front of me, like a young guy. And then I could see that he was dead, and I had to like step over him.
Wow.
As we got closer, it all faded back to normal. And then I could see Marty again and everything. But this was again just a week ago. And I felt like the energy there at a place that I've repeatedly gone to was so, you know, physically felt that I have to say that there's something definitely going on in the spirit realm trying to grab our attention and bring us in right now. So
definitely. I think it's more important than ever to find your own path of spirituality right now. I mean, when you don't know who to trust or, you know, what any organization is really involved in, you know that you can trust yourself, you know that you can trust the elements, and you know that you can trust your own intuition. The more you work with it, the more it works. So this cobweb feeling that you've had, I've had that feeling too before. And it's literally all the spirits of that area were swirling all around you. And so it creates this, it's odd to say, but it's like a cocoon of sorts that you can almost time travel. I hate to use that word because you're really viewing something from the past with the help of the spirits and with your own innate abilities.
Yes, I call it kind of, you know, because I know time travel's hard, but it's almost like it's like a slip in time where for a moment the energy is so intense that you can actually visualize like you're standing there because they're giving you this image, what happened and what they need you to see. And they can really kind of overtake you with that. But I am interested to see, because even though I've been a practicing medium and everything like this. Oh, Jason just logged on. Hello, Jason.
And I'm using his phone. I don't know how he did that. Hi, Jay.
A different Jason.
A different Jason.
Yes. Jason is actually a paranormal investigator who joined us years ago on a tour, and he's fantastic. So yeah, but I was, just saying that even as a practicing medium, I've noticed such a change in energy lately, in how strong it is and how vivid it is. And I think that they, have been really interesting as we've been going out in investigations. And that's why you saw them so vividly on the Regicide Trail. It's just, they show up almost as if they're in our time. So,
and that's really true. That's really true in a lot of New England, like especially our area of New England, and in Mystic in particular, and also in East Haddam. There's something to do with the energy feeling a lot like Sedona, only with water, and in East Haddam with earth. And the vortexes sort of attract, I think, people like us and creatures that we're looking for. So honestly, I tell people, if you don't want to see what I'm about to ask, if you don't want to see an alien, then don't ask to see an alien. If you don't want to see a Pukwudgie, don't ask. I really don't.
Unless you're Courtney and then you're just along for the ride because this was your job choice in life. You just gotta go with it.
Right. But the melon heads are the ones that really scare me. They scare me, and Mothman scares me. Pretty much everything else I'm good with.
The melon heads could be alive.
I know.
They could be a real, like, inbred cannibal. Like,
I'm so scared of that. I think of the Lilliputians.
They control people too.
No, that's the Pukwudgies.
Pukwudgies change, and we did see. I remember on Regicide Trail there were no animals at all except for one firefly, and we were very suspicious that firefly could have been a Pukwudgie. Remember?
And yes, and one bat came by when we were leaving.
Yeah.
One bat. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
there was a little boy who was near a boulder who kept saying, "Get back, stay down."
Yes, I was listening to that little boy.
Yeah,
Like
that was Jason.
he was giving warnings and I was there to listen to him.
I don't know. I kind of feel like I like to go towards the tornado or the fire all the time. And I don't really ever think I'll get hurt. So far, I haven't. But it was only at the moment when I thought maybe an actual living human might be there living in the woods.
And I think that's more terrifying than the dead. And you know, I tease you, but I just told you I tried to walk like the soldiers walked at Pickett's Charge at sunset. So like we all have our different thresholds on what makes us comfortable. But like you were saying, it's so important to work with spirits or areas that you know that you're still going to be safe. And you know, so function within that safety net for yourself. Don't just like dive into Downs Road or Gettysburg or something like this without the knowledge of what you're getting into.
Tell me, Courtney, I heard through the grapevine, Marty, that you heard cannon fire on the field.
Yes, so this has been recurring. So we've gone to Gettysburg twice within the past month. And I'm just going to pitch a Civil War tent out there at this point. But
I'll do it with you.
both times we've been out there on the wheat field in Gettysburg. And, you know, the
second time was at Pickett's Charge.
Oh, we heard a gunshot at Gettysburg. Oh, so we had two things happen.
Amazing.
In May, we were at the wheat field and we heard a cannon fire, and it was at night. And then
2 gunshots as well.
And then the first day we went to Pickett's Charge last week, we were showing folks around and we got out of the car and I said, Jesus, is someone setting off fireworks? Because I could hear them. But if you've been in Gettysburg, you're in the middle of a field. There's nobody there setting off fireworks, and it's a national park, so not allowed. And we didn't see anyone around. We didn't see any other cars. And then I thought, oh gosh, it's just me again, you know, doing my medium thing. I'm just going to stay quiet. And then someone else got out of the car. They said, did you hear that? And I was like, oh, yes, I did. And then we heard one more cannon fire, loud as heck. And then, of course, the National Park Police pulled up and said, you got to get out of here. It's nighttime. And we said, sorry, bye. I was a little bummed, you know, the ghosts were getting excited. But we went back the next night to the wheat field. We investigated, you know, I had kind of even tranced out a little bit, and it was a spooky night. And then right before we left, as we're walking to the car, we heard pop gunfire, like coming from the woods where there was indeed a charge coming out into the wheat field. And my take on Gettysburg, and this isn't the only place this happens, I've investigated other places where I found this too, is that sometimes there's portions where the chaos or the death was so immense in one part that it almost recycles. That moment in time is like on a replay. And when you investigate, you can tap into hearing that whole cycle. You can hear when the firing starts, when the fighting happens, when they die, and then quiet, and then it resets back.
It's like a residual recording.
Yes.
Like some of the ghosts you see are like this too. They're not sentient, but they replay what they did their last day or their normal routine. Like if you've seen ghosts walk through walls at old factory buildings, that's because they're still there, residually doing their job.
Right. And they're not going to be the ones when you investigate who answer your questions, because that's not, you know, where they're at. This is residual, but the energy of what they were part of is so strong that we can still kind of get evidence of them, which is really, really interesting. But I do think that that's often the cause for the gunshots and cannon fire, you know, out there, because when we investigate, we say, can you make this sound? They don't make it when we ask, because they don't necessarily see us or hear us. But when we're not expecting it, then it will pop. Sometimes I can get them a little riled up when I play like Civil War fighting music on the field or something, or like what the drummer boys would play. Sometimes I can tease up the timeline a little bit with that, but that's something that we've just started trying and has been really interesting and spooky and, you know, feelings. So, you know, I'll be back there again this year. of
Yeah,
course.
when is your Gettysburg tour happening?
Sure. So, if you guys want to kind of experience investigating these battlefields and their haunts, there's a lot of really great opportunities coming up. But the very first one is coming up in a few months, Labor Day weekend in September. We're going to be going to Chancellorsville, Spotsylvania, and Wilderness, all in Virginia, one of the most haunted battlefield trifectas in the country, where the first documentations of ghosts actually came from the soldiers who were fighting, who saw them during the battle. And when they went to go get their friends' bodies, they saw their ghosts. So we're going to be going there, and then we're going to make our way up to Harper's Ferry and see John Brown, the famous abolitionist, who his ghost still takes photos with tourists. So we're hoping he'll pop by. And then yeah, I'm so excited. And then we're going to go to Antietam, which is the deadliest day in American history and has the Bloody Lane, where I believe 6,000 people were piled up in the Bloody Lane that died
at one
time.
Right?
And there's some really spooky things that happen at the Bloody Lane. Some field trips have had to leave because of the ghosts.
Really?
And then yes, it's crazy stories that we'll be telling people. And then we're going to make our way up to Gettysburg for 2 days for the grand finale, and be going all around to the hot spots there and eating at a haunted restaurant. So if you're interested, this is something you can book on mysteriousAdventuretours.com. That's who we're partnering with for this fantastic event. And if you know me by now, if you're a Seaside Shadows fan, that I can't get enough of my soldier ghosts. So in April of next year, we're going to be doing Irish battlefields and the story of the Irish Republican Army, the Easter Rising, Michael Collins, all of that next April. It's going to be a fabulous 8-night, 9-day trip all around Ireland that we're doing. And then we're starting to plan for 2023 a haunted Jacobite trail in Scotland trip. So
yes,
so excited. So check out seasideshadows.com for details on Ireland and the Civil War. Those are the first ones coming up within the year.
There's one more thing.
What?
Seaside Shadows might be getting a headquarters very soon.
Oh,
yes. This was a sunshine find. I'm going to give full credit on this.
To Sunshine.
Sunshine was drawn to a beautiful historic location in need of restoration and TLC, but already haunted, of course. The ghost brought her to it. And, we've been talking, with the good folks that own the property and are going to be taking it over and converting it to be a headquarters. And stay tuned, because there are definitely going to be paranormal investigations taking place. Part of the property dates to 1675. So
it's even older than we thought.
Yes.
Now, I wanted to say about this house, I'm not going to say where it is exactly, because not yet.
Yeah.
Not
soon.
But I was driving somewhere in the local area and I saw a house I'd never seen before. And it was very attractive to me because it looked sort of like the Whitehall Mansion, sort of to me, and sort of Daniel Packer's Inn, sort of.
Same style as the Daniel Packer Inn.
Yes.
Right. And so Jason and I always go to check these things out. I was like, let's go look at it. I want to see it. I need to know about it. What's going on there? And so I went into the area of the house and kind of looked in the windows, and then it looked like somebody might be living there. So we kind of backed off a little bit, and I took a little piece of pottery that I'd found out in the yard that seemed to be very old, and I brought it home and I put it on my altar. And then that night I was awake for 6 entire hours researching the house, finding out where it came from, who owned it. And then the next day I called the owners and they were open to hearing what I had to say. They weren't like, oh, you're a psychic, get the hell out of here. They were like, come on in, what do you know? And so I think it's just very fortunate because the house was looking for owners.
Yes.
And the owners, you guys, are looking for a house. And it's just the perfect one.
And it's perfect for paranormal events. We're going to do historic events there, hearth cooking, you name it. We're going to be able to do, Sunshine and I are going to plan some magical events out back there. Really great things. It's funny, when all this happened, I was not even thinking about it. Poor Sunshine was texting me at all hours of the night. I was in Gettysburg per usual. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. Hold on. Sunshine's like, sorry, you had to know about this. But if I've learned anything in Seaside Shadows, whenever we create tours, events, or anything that is meant to be part of our purpose of sharing history and being ambassadors of history, they find us. They bring us in, they tell us what we need to do, and the spirits of this house need their story told, and they need to be honored. So that will be
amazing stories they are.
Yes,
too.
yes.
I mean, amazing. So
we're already working on them. We got some great information. It is nearby a cemetery where a lot of them are buried. So there will probably be a dual investigation going on there. But we will definitely let you know when we get that part of Seaside Shadows up and running.
And I might even tease you guys a little bit with random live segments at the house.
Ooh, nice.
I like that. I like that. And we are going to be, speaking of live, we are going to be making it our goal. So if you, Jason said, sweet, that would be awesome. And I'd love to see. Yes, you're going to see. Everyone's going to see.
It's really cool.
So, that does remind me, we've been talking more and more. We really loved doing the investigation live at Downs Road. It was live-ish in the sense that it was hard to get a little bit of service out there. So Riley helped put it together for us. God bless her. She is the best. But we want to do some more live investigations where you can participate while we're out there, you know, in the field, traveling and doing things. And we will do our best to come live to you from a very special location next week. And I also encourage you all to tune in Monday night at 10 p.m. I'm doing a paranormal podcast with Dominic, and I'll be sharing the details on it. That podcast, I will be talking all about my experiences with the Warrens. Tune in for that one. It'll be a very special episode. I'm looking forward to talking with him about it. So with that, it is just about 8:30. Be sure to send questions and comments if you have them about anything we talked about and any of your thoughts. And we will see you next week for Witchy Wednesday. Bye, everybody.
Bye.